This is the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, the biggest sci-fi podcast in the galaxy, a proud part of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network. Season 6 was a blast, but Season 7 is going to be even more fun as we continue to go where no podcast has gone before, deep into the sci-fi universe. Join Adina, Brian, Cris, and Steve as they explore television, film, and literature for the best sci-fi has to offer. Even if you're not a sci-fi fan, you'll love the banter and the epic tangents as these four friends talk about what they love. We invite you to sit back and relax because the journey is just beginning on this season of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast.
Good day, fans of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Today's discussion is about three concepts: regret, a second chance, and redemption. These are feelings I have felt, or we have all felt, at one time or another, and it's the basis for the film we are going to talk about, Godzilla Minus One. Okay, flashback to the end of last year. My co-worker at Children's Hospital Los Angeles, Brandon, told me he had just seen Godzilla Minus One, and that I had to see it. I was skeptical. I saw the first original American version of Godzilla from the 50s with Raymond Burr and English dubbing over Japanese spoke words as a kid, and I loved it. So much so that every Godzilla film released in the 60s and 70s, I tried to watch on TV or at the theater. And we're talking Godzilla versus King Kong, Godzilla versus Mega Godzilla, all that stuff. So that is until 1998, when Roland Emmerich released his version, and my trust of any new Godzilla films went to zero. So I held back. I didn't follow Brandon's request, and then, when I saw my daughter Jenny in December, and she told me of this film she had just seen, Godzilla Minus Zero, she could not say enough good things about it. So, on those two recommendations, I set out to see it. Now we get to regret. And that happened, and it was gone. I missed my chance to see it on the big screen. That's my regret. Then I was given a second chance. It was to be re-released at the end of January of this year on the big screen, but in black and white, like the original. And as soon as tickets were available, I bought two for me and Elaine, and we saw it in all its subtitled and spoken Japanese beauty. And now we come to Redemption. It was released in black and white for only 1 week, so I was lucky to have seen it as if it was 1954 when the original non-Americanized version was released. Now, I've seen the original on TCM a few years ago, and I've always enjoyed a good Japanese Godzilla film, even the campy ones that even had his son in it. Now, how did that happen if we never met Mrs. Godzilla? Anyway, let us delve into the film that is more than a Godzilla film. It's the story of the main character, Koichi Shikashima, and how he deals with his regret, his second chance, and his redemption at the end of the film. And to introduce the members of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, they are Adina-san.
Konnichiwa.
Cris-san.
Hello.
Hello. Okay.
I'm not going to say, I don't know. I don't feel good saying other things.
Brian-san.
Lucy, very good.
I don't know.
And I am Steven-san. And with that done and out of the way, let's begin. But before we do, if you haven't seen this movie, it's on Netflix. And you can choose to see it in color, in black and white, with subtitles, without subtitles, with Japanese language, without Japanese language. You get the whole thing. So really, if you haven't seen it, go watch it, then come back, because we're going to spoiler the heck out of this film. And with that, I'm going to ask the first question, which I always want to know. Do you remember the first time you did see any Godzilla film, and what did you think of it?
My first was, it should be the 1998 one. It wasn't, because I don't think I've actually even seen it. Seen bits and pieces of it. But my first one was the 2014 Godzilla, with Walter White. I remember his name.
Oh God,
and
yes.
some of the folks from the Avengers, and I loved it. I thought it was fun. It would like hit all the things. It had the cool. They have a right to. People have a right to know line, like a cool line, and like all the usual disaster movie tropes that I love.
Adina, do you remember?
I don't remember because I feel like there were Godzilla movies that were on if you woke up in the middle of the night and turned the
Yeah.
TV on. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't remember. Although I remember as a kid, Saturday morning cartoons. I think it was Saturday morning as opposed to like after school cartoons. There was a Godzilla cartoon from like the late 70s that was played in like the early 80s when I was a kid.
Okay.
But Godzilla, my recollection of this was that Godzilla was like a good guy that they would call on to help defeat other monsters.
He helped children all over Japan. He was a nice guy. He looked like the Cookie Monster. So what do you expect?
Right, but I don't even think that this. I feel like that this cartoon that I'm remembering took place like outside of Manhattan. Like it wasn't.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. I mean, I probably have to go find it again.
Okay.
But
why do we have to Americanize every blasted thing?
Well, I could also be remembering completely wrong, but I do remember I just have this image of like them calling out for Godzilla and he would rise up from the ocean and come and like save defeat a monster and save that's it. But I did see the 2014 one in the theater and I liked it. It wasn't like I don't feel like I was, oh my God, this was the most amazing movie of the year, but I remember enjoying it. That's what I got. That's what I got.
Well, I think I've probably seen some black and white ones on television, but the one I remember, I went to see it in the theater, was the 98. Is that the one with Matthew Broderick?
And Jeff Goldblum, I think, is in it.
Jeff Goldblum. Oh, yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah, I believe I did see that.
I think that's what he plays. Yeah, it takes place in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And the interesting thing is I remember going to work one day when I was working downtown and seeing the mock-up of the tank that's in the film in the 2nd Street tunnel in downtown Los Angeles. And I'm going, what the heck is this?
Here's how good that film was. I went to see it with my father with all the loud noises throughout that, because that's just total carnage. That movie is just Godzilla running through the streets, and tanks shooting at it and stuff, classic stuff, but it's nothing but loud action. My dad fell asleep.
Oh,
he missed over half the movie. He was so bored, even with all that stuff going on. So, but he was happy to get a fine nap in the meantime.
All right. Well, the best naps are the ones where you find them. So that's good. That's okay. When The Little Mermaid came out and I saw it with my family, my daughter Jenny was about a year old and she sat on my lap and the movie started. We both fell asleep and woke up at the end of the film. So I can understand that. But she was so warm and cuddly. How can I tell you? Anyway, I mean, I saw all these. I remember going to downtown Los Angeles to go see Godzilla King of the Monsters and going to see King Ghidorah and all of them and Mothra. And just it was all, Rodan, the giant flying creature. And it was amazing, but what do you expect when you're 13 years old? This is all pretty cool stuff,
right? So, and all stop action motion, right? Stop motion, whatever.
Those back then that was people in rubber suits.
Really?
Yes, yes. There. You go and look online, you will see the head come off of Godzilla, and you'll see the actor inside there. There was a Japanese actor inside Godzilla.
So let me ask you this then. Not that there hasn't been any crossovers, but the original King Kong film, was that stop motion?
Yes, that was stop motion. That one was definitely stop motion. And many of the other monster films of the 50s, like the creature from 20,000 Fathoms, was stop motion action.
Okay.
So yeah, those ones were done that way by George Pal and especially Ray Harryhausen. But the original Godzilla films was man in a rubber suit. And I remember watching with my daughter, Stephanie, and saying, see, sweetie, if you look very carefully, you can see the zipper.
No way.
And that just made her, she laughed at that. So that made it okay. But yes. So then what do you think of this film and the premise of it? how it starts. And maybe that gets into the question of why was it named Godzilla Minus One? And
I kind of want to know the answer to that because I didn't have a chance to look that up before
Mhm.
we went recording it. But I really want to know
From
why
what
it's
I
called that.
saw online, it's an indication that this story takes place at the beginning of the end of World War II and then post World War II Japan. That the country was so beaten down by the war that they were less than zero, that they were minus one, that
Oh,
they were
wow.
starting at minus one and had to rebuild
Oh, that's
and
so
and
powerful.
recreate.
Hmm.
And you see that at the beginning of the film after the war is over with, and you see you're in the cities of Japan, and it's hovel. It's destruction. There's people has no food. There's no running water. An infant goes without any, whatever happened to their parents. People are just struggling to make rice water into milk for the baby. So you get this film that the idea that they went from less than zero to where they rebuild Japan. And we did again, the Marshall Plan did help that out in post World War II to rebuild Japan, as opposed to, we're the conquerors, it's ours, thank you very much. That's not how it happened
Right.
in Europe and Japan
Well,
after World War II.
I was really pleasantly and maybe even overwhelmingly surprised at the charm of this film,
Mm-hmm.
at the human story of this film, and it was really powerful at moments. Like it moved me to tears
Mm-hmm.
in the right moments, and it was heroic. It had, the people overcoming, like you said, Steve, what they went through with the war, banding together what they
Mm-hmm.
had, and I loved the whole how we're doing this by choice. And I don't want to, maybe we'll get to the plot twist at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just beautiful stuff of good humanity in this film.
Yeah.
Beautifully shot. It's super well done. Like I was impressed all the way around. I felt like the acting was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Even the English overdub of were very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps the best I've ever seen from a
Mm-hmm.
foreign film.
Right.
And it just was believable. I literally sat there from the beginning of this film, willing to suspend my disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They did such a good job of telling this story. You know what this film reminded me of?
Hmm.
This
MASH.
could have MASH. No,
It reminded me of MASH
that's funny though.
sometimes. Yeah.
But
Okay.
but this could have been like the Rocky 8 film. Like I was cheering for these people like I do Rocky every time, especially 3,
Mm-hmm.
or 3 or 4, I forget now. And I just Rocky 4. And so it's just like I almost got that vibe, like, in a theater, I could imagine people standing up and cheering at the end, for the victory and all that stuff. It was just really well done. It really captured my imagination. And yeah, I've got something really bold I want to say, because I assume we're going to rate this film at the end.
Oh yes, we already got in. We're going to do the
I'm gonna
Ryan Donahue five stars. We'll go with that.
Is it good or toilet paper good? What is it? So anyways.
So I have a lot of similar things that Brian said in that I like the movie a lot. The funny thing was I was not terribly interested in Godzilla or the actual Godzilla. It's
Thank
the
you.
story of post World War II Japan, which was really interesting, especially because that we don't ever see it from their point of view. We see post World War II Americans who fought in the Pacific Theater. And that's actually one of the reasons why I know very little about the war in the Pacific, because my grandfathers were both in Europe, as were a lot of the people I grew up with. Our grandfathers were all like in Europe. I didn't know anyone related to the Pacifics. I don't know very much about it, even though the reason why I started out with Konnichiwa today was because when I was like 9, I took like a Japanese class. It was like a
Oh,
whole
wow.
language and culture class. But I know very little about, other than some, basic, obviously they were rebuilding, they were devastated and rebuilding, but seeing a story from their point of view, I was fascinated by. But one of the things that kept coming to me, a line from Star Trek.
Oh,
So
interesting.
when they were having that scene where they're calling on these people to like, hey, we got to go uh fight, we've asked you to,
Right, right.
sorry, we're asking you. One of the things, it was from the episode Space Seed,
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
Spock is saying, now again, and it's not analogous, but the line kept coming into my head. Would you tell a war-weary population anything? In the case of the episode Space Seed, it's would
Mhm.
you tell a war-weary population that some 72 Supermen are not unaccounted for? That was the line
Mhm.
in Star Trek. But what I'm thinking of is you have a war-weary population and you're trying to
Mhm.
get them to do it doesn't matter. It's just like look how weary they are, and
Mhm.
not just the main character suffering from post-traumatic stress, but
Yeah.
everyone in that situation is going to be.
Yeah.
And here they are, they're not done. But the other interesting thing I thought that was coming from like the Japanese point of view was how they seem to view their government, at least at that time, as
Yeah.
they're just cogs. They're not
Hmm.
really people. They're disposable cogs in a machine.
Such
Yeah.
as the main character ending having to be a mind destroyer
Right.
and risking
Well,
his
Mhm.
life at the worst possible job that
yeah.
could have ended his life because he had to make money because
But
that's the jobs he could get. Yeah.
Well,
they
that
they
was
But
said
post though. They had
mhm,
many conversations,
during
or a
well,
few during
yeah.
conversations during the movie where they
Mm.
talk about the government specifically and how they felt through the war.
Mm.
Right?
right. Well, it sounds like, and again, this is not something I've researched or thought deeply about, but again, just culture wise, we hear about kamikaze pilots. And I think what we're told, which is I think the same thing they were told, was that like that's kind of like something you
Great honor.
do as it's a great
Yes.
honor. But like I
Mhm.
think what they're trying to say in the movie is they're recognizing they were sold a lie.
Yes.
That they
Yes.
were told that because they didn't want to put in the equipment to save the people. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I really, I'll be honest, in my 50 years, I've never considered that maybe that's actually it. So, they don't want to spend the money
Yeah.
to save the lives. So they're telling it, oh, you're going to have an honorable death and don't you dare come back because you need to have
Hmm.
an honorable death.
And
And
here,
they bought into it, but now they're starting to realize that they were sold a lie too.
One of the
And
most interesting parts of this film is the ejection seat.
at the
yes.
end, yes.
Yeah. That's
Which is the
oh,
surprise ending at the end, which is
still. So
wonderful.
spoiler alert, folks. Have we said that yet? Spoiler alert. Okay.
Yeah, Coach, he lives.
Turn
He
this
lives.
off. Go watch it. Check us back. Okay. Come back.
But interesting you say about the lie. When the Americans were going to attack the island of Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Japanese women literally committed suicide or their own children because they were told by their government when the American soldiers land here, they're going to rape you, they're going to eat your children, they're going to do all these horrible things. We have to rally to them. And when the Americans landed, what they did was they said, here, what can we do to help you? And they realized we were sold a bill of goods by the Japanese. And that's
Mm.
the situation that happened at the end of the war, is that when you're losing the war, you lie even more.
Mhm.
And so that's when you talk about how the government, you feel like the Japanese government misled the population. Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
was real. It
So
was really a case.
so honestly, so the Godzilla part of the movie to me was like, whatever. It's just the obstacle that these people need to overcome. And all I
Hmm.
cared about was these people like getting a normal, getting back to a life that they deserve. Like just to
Hmm.
have
Yeah.
a life and go to work and raise their kids and not be traumatized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, what's your feelings on all
Yeah,
this?
it was the same thing. I intentionally did not watch any trailers before seeing this. So I saw it with my friend in theaters.
Hmm.
We got like the 4D experience, which was really cool. And because it's Godzilla, I thought, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I always look forward to a good disaster film. So I thought I'm going to have a lot of fun. And there was a lot of that. But like, as you're all saying, it was so much deeper than what I was expecting. I was not expecting to get a story about war and, like deserting the war because you're afraid and dealing with those consequences. I wasn't expecting any of that. And so it's just like, this movie is phenomenal, and I can't say enough about it. But yeah, just really well done and like incredibly deep for a film that's supposed to just be about Godzilla. When I think Adina's right that it doesn't. Yeah, Godzilla I think is great. It adds some cool stuff. I love the end, but I don't think you needed Godzilla because it told like a whole.
It could have been anything.
Story.
It could have been any disaster.
But that's the whole thing. Godzilla is just the concept of how bad can we be? Oh yes, now we have a monster that wants to destroy us. And what am I supposed to do? And the main character, again, his regret is he was a coward by their standards, that he didn't do his kamikaze mission. When he was given he thought the opportunity to kill Godzilla with the gun on his aircraft, which he doesn't do, and everybody is injured or dies. And he has to go through that entire regret of knowing that, I mean, he didn't do what he thought he was supposed to do. He was a coward, and he comes home to a life that is he nothing, and he's even more regretful. And that's there's as you said, there's tremendous emotion in that. And where's his second chance? His second chance is his ability to help them out to defeat Godzilla.
And but even what's interesting about that. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, even to raise that child, I think
I was going to say that's the second chance. Yeah, that was the second chance. Godzilla is the third.
Third chance.
Yeah.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Very good, Adina.
This is such a good story of redemption, of pushing through adversity and great deep trauma and shame and all the things culturally that means to the main character. Like it's just, this movie is so deep and rich. And I just honestly, like a lot of American films, you especially talk about war films coming out of World War II that Hollywood produced. We get such caricatures of Japanese people. We don't
even
get,
now.
Yeah. Even now, I think, I'm going to go off topic.
But that's the thing is, even like I can't think of, and again, this might be my own bias towards the European theater. I can't think of a movie related to World War II that was not
that didn't dehumanize.
Well, there
Japanese.
was Pearl Harbor. No, that was even just European. Like I can only think of European based movies, except for the one Pearl Harbor. But that was. I think
that's terrible. If that's the one you're talking with Ben Affleck, it's a terrible movie. Terrible.
Yeah.
No, if you want to see a good movie that tells the story from the Japanese point of view, it's a film called None But the Brave.
Yes.
Brian, if you've ever seen it, this movie tells the story of a Japanese contingent on an island, an American contingent of soldiers crash land on it. They realize that either the war ended when they were stranded on that island, and it's told from the Japanese point of view.
Wow.
Not from the American. It's a powerful film. Frank Sinatra's in it. He's absolutely wonderful in it.
Can't believe I've never heard of it.
Oh, you have to give Brian.
I'm looking
None But the Brave. It is a marvelous film.
The reason why I made the comparison, I also was thinking of MASH, was that whole concept of, because not the comedy aspect of MASH, but the aspect of they're in this situation and it seems like it's never going to end. They're never going to get out. They're never going to get home. And so that's the feeling that I had in this kind of war situation. Like, it's, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. They're never really going to get out. They're never really going to get out. So that to me was why, like, my brain kept going back to MASH.
Yeah. But then you go also at the end of the film, you go to a film like Dunkirk, where all of a sudden they feel like we're out of this, we're dead. And then all the individuals come as a group to help accomplish the goal at the very end.
But that's European. like I said, and again,
yes,
I think there's
exactly.
very, very
That's a
different
that's a European film.
versus
Absolutely.
Pacific.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I felt like, I'm not Japanese, so I don't know for sure, but I would be daggone proud to be a Japanese citizen if, based on this film and how it portrays the response of people after that trauma of World War II. And let's face it, it's so easy to put evil on who our governments call our enemies, and especially that war. I mean, we had epitomized evil probably for the rest of time in Hitler, right? Evil was always this almost spiritual thing. Hitler came along, and that's now who we call, that's the standard for evil now, almost across the world. And so that happens in our films, it happens in our entertainment. It's not just our government, folks. It's everywhere. And it was just I can't say enough about how warm-hearted this made me feel. It just brilliantly humanized.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's brought up in this incredible fictional story of Godzilla and all this stuff. It's just absolutely over the top big storyline with Godzilla coming up out of the oceans and shooting blue ray beams, and all that stuff, and his spikes coming out of his body at will, and some of that stuff is pretty fantastic. But the spirit of this film is absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say this now, guys, because I can't contain it any longer.
Go ahead. Spew.
This film is now in my top 10 all time.
Wow.
I loved it that much.
Wow.
I think it's that beautiful. It's that well done. It's got that much heart. I'm going to watch this. Eventually, I'm going to show it to my kids.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it again. And that's how much this film captured my heart. It's now in my top 10.
And, that's the whole thing why I say about regret, second chance, and redemption, because I poo-pooed this film. I figured it was just going to be another bad Godzilla movie, and I figured everybody else was wrong, and I was right. And then I saw this movie, and I was wrong. I went in this with the incorrect expectations and walked out of the theater happy to know that everyone else was right. Because it isn't a Godzilla film. Godzilla is a secondary character. He's a supporting actor, whatever you want to call him. It's just all he is in this. He's just a metaphor for the problems that they have to do to overcome the adversity of their society and the situation that they're living in. Yeah. But that they can all pull together. Go ahead.
I do have one qualm, though, with Godzilla himself or itself, if apparently it can have children without a female companion.
Sure.
Whatever.
It's a worm. He's a worm. Okay. He's bisexual. He's
we actually, there is no, at this moment in time, there is no reason to know, assign any gender to it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Fair. So why did they always give that beast a beer belly, though?
Yeah, that's fair.
Always got a beer belly. Except for the 98 version, I think. I think they tried to make it more lizard-like in that one.
Yes, he actually was. He walked on fours, I think, in that one. Yeah. Which is, again, one of the reasons why I didn't like the film, because they changed Godzilla.
That's by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the deepest questions you'll ever hear me ask. Why does he have a beer belly?
But I've definitely felt that way, too, where I'm like, he looks a little chunky.
I know he's a big guy, but I'm like,
maybe she is pregnant. Maybe she has a clutch of eggs.
That's the next movie.
Yeah.
That'll be +2. It'll be twins.
You heard it here first, folks.
+2. I'm here all night, folks.
For anyone who is a fan of the concept, though, of kaiju and thinking deeply about kaiju, they absolutely must read The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi.
Yes.
That book was amazing. It was awesome. And as someone who, again, saw, Godzilla
been on our
movies
podcast too.
And that too. Someone who's seen, I watched the Godzilla movies probably, again, 2 a.m, just randomly, whatever. So I'm not, I was never a big, huge, kaiju person. That book is awesome. And everyone should read it.
I know people that love that book in my family. So, what's the next question, man? We answered them all already.
Okay. All right. Well, here, no, hasn't. Do you think? Well, I think we already answered. Is this movie? worthy of an Academy Award for the special effects.
Oh,
for
the
special
effects. I would say,
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I think the effects were good, but I wonder how that works because it's a Japanese movie, but I just feel like the acting, the story, the fact that you can tell this amazing story and have Godzilla be part of it, I think it's just like it's almost unheard of. I'm trying to think of another movie like this. Like, of course, we love our Independence Days that we talk about.
Right.
And like it has, I wouldn't say it has deep stuff, but I mean, they try to get like some, emotional, like deeper things than other than just, the world ending. But on this scale, we've never seen this. So it needs something. An Academy Award, whatever we can get it. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but like whatever category would make sense, let's say yes.
Well, the most amazing thing about this film is it was made on a $10 to $15 million budget.
What?
That's nuts.
Yes. Wow. Now, if this is in Wikipedia, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me, Wikipedia. But that's what it says, and I believe I saw it some other place too that it was made in an extremely small budget.
Wow, they have some really good green screen work then.
It must be.
I mean, that's just unbelievable. Yeah, I hope it does more than win awards for special effects or makeup.
Well, it did win the one award. They got that one award at the Academy for special effects.
Did it? Okay.
Yes, it did.
Okay.
But not for acting or writing or directing, editing.
No, not even. It wasn't even up nominated as a foreign film. It wasn't even up as a foreign film, but it got that award.
That's the hard thing. Like I think Star Trek: First Contact was one of the 10 best films of the year when it came out.
You won't get any argument.
It was even rated that by many people that said this is one of the best films of the year. Did it get any nominations? I can't remember if it got like makeup. It may have gotten a makeup nod, or I don't know. It may not have, but I think it's hard for films in these types of genres to really be taken seriously, even if they're freaking fantastic, like really good, where they are instant classics. We're going to be watching, films, this film for however many years into the future, but because of the genre, it's just not taken as seriously. They're going to choose a really slow paced film with maybe some really great acting in it. But, these types of films just don't have a shot to make Best Picture. I mean, honestly, Peter Jackson with The Return of the King and that winning Best Picture was absolutely a tremendous feat. It was a tremendous film. That's why it won. But even still, I was shocked to hear that it won Best Film.
Right.
Because it's such a niche genre. I mean, fantasy is such a I mean, you can have a hugely successful film and it not get any awards.
Books too. Like genre books don't get the literary award. It's the same thing. It's a shame. But
it's like comedies. It's a shame. 100%. It's really down now.
I'm looking up the film The Shape of Water. I think that won an Academy Award. And that was
it's not that it never happens.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen.
Unusual.
It's very rare for films. Yeah. It won 4 Oscars for that film.
Oh wow, did it really?
Yeah, it did. I'm looking it up right now. And
well, I just like if there ever was a Godzilla film that deserves that, I would say this is probably it. And I think I mean, you got to look at the acting. The acting in this is really phenomenal. The music in it is really inspiring. I'm not going to say it's one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard, but it does its job really well. It pushes the emotion just right, the feeling of what's happening really well. And and the cinematography, like this is a beautiful film to watch. Yeah, it really is.
Did you watch it in color or black and white?
Color.
I did color, just the Netflix.
Yeah,
I didn't even actually think about. I didn't know that there was a black and white. version
I believe there's a black and white version. If you look at that, it is to see it in black and white. There's something beautiful about black and white. It makes those definite you know that from watching old films, Brian.
Yeah.
How it really sets up that shading and the genre, that type of filmmaking.
I think some of the most beautiful art are black and white.
Oh,
photos.
I was going to say
photography that's done well.
Yeah, I've
Black
got
and white.
I received the latest issue of Road and Track magazine. It's entirely in black and white to make the point of just how compelling, how it makes it stand out from light to dark for the shading, how black and white really makes a big difference. And but again, in color, it was a beautiful film, and I watched it on Netflix again for the second time in color.
If I watch this again, if it's just myself, like if Devin's out of town or something, the kids are asleep at night or something, I will probably try to find it in black and white.
Yeah.
But when I introduce my kids to this, because I think I don't remember gory blood and guts at all. I mean, he throws people, bites into somebody, throws them, that kind of stuff.
It's a little bit. I feel like there were a couple, definitely, especially that first scene on the first island. It was, and then when they're running away from Godzilla, that moment when the girlfriend.
Yeah, that's
when we think she dies.
Yeah, what's her
name? I feel like that was a little disturbing.
Noriko.
Yeah. So that's I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to show it to him. Everybody calm down. I'm not saying I'm showing it to him tomorrow.
No.
Man, you should see the shock on these guys' faces.
Like I would let my 14-year-old watch this if he was interested.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
This
every kid's different, but
oh man, we're having such an adult parent conversation, Adina. This is
if compared to the Japanese films of the 60s, those Godzilla films, you can watch your kids go watch this all day long. Yeah. There's no question, because that's really more like watching puppetry or anything like that.
We're watching. My son and I got halfway through one from the 80s. And it was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I can't even remember the name of it. I don't even know if I'll be able to find it again on streaming. But yeah, I don't know. Guys, I'm telling you, I'm so infatuated with this film right now.
You can tell.
So we've talked about regret, second chance or third chance, the redemption at the end of the film. Was it right for the main character to say, I'm going to die. I'm going to kill myself, or make everybody think that he's going to do the kamikaze mission to destroy Godzilla? And then we get that great ending.
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't like trying to trick anybody.
I think
everybody on the ship had no idea what they thought he died.
Well, because they didn't know about the eject thing, but that's but he wasn't like hiding it. He
didn't know either. I don't think he knew either that he was.
But it made us think until we didn't know about the ejection sheet being built into it that you went.
Yeah.
Brilliant filmmaking. This is one reason I'm so excited about this film. Is there's that scene when he's in the cockpit of the fighter jet and the engineer, they're having a discussion, and the engineer looks, or before the guy gets in the seat, the engineer looks at the seat and he kind of feels it, and you get the impression like, oh man, he's going, why didn't they put ejection seats in these things? And then he's having a conversation with the main character. And then all of a sudden the camera pulls back and it's obvious they're still talking, but we can't. All of a sudden the sound goes dead. We can't hear what they're saying. And later in the film, they come back to say where he says, you don't have to do that. Live.
Yeah. But
the way they powerful.
But the way they let us know was different. There was no opportunity to let the other characters know. Yeah. So it's okay. So like they tricked us. But they didn't really trick the other characters. The other characters, like, there was no opportunity for them to know. So I feel like it was completely fair, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And
I think.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
I'm sorry, Steve. I'm so excited.
I love it. I apologize. I'm very happy that I recommend a film you're so happy about, as opposed to something that you're going, really? Really?
Ghostbusters?
You made us
Film
watch
that should not
Moonfall.
be made. Oh,
Hey, I didn't
you
make you
named
watch
it.
Sorry.
No, that's Chris's fault. He picked
I
Moonfall.
think
not
we
me.
should, guys, listen.
I think I did,
listen.
actually.
Speaking of redemption, we need to let Moonfall go for the sake of our brother and friend Cris. We need to never bring it up again.
I want to clarify. I'm not saying it's a good movie. I'm just saying it's so mediocre that you're making it out to be much worse than mediocre.
You want
To me, it's
mediocre?
mediocre.
You want mediocre, Cris? Go watch Godzilla versus King Kong from this year.
I watched. I heard
That's
it was terrible.
mediocre. That is the Moonfall of Godzilla films. It's so bad.
So, anyways, getting back to what I was going to say,
right.
is before we brought up that film again, Adina can't let it go,
Sorry.
guys. We're just going to have to live with it, I guess. But I love that this young man struggled with what he felt he had to do to redeem himself. He went all the way to the lengths of writing a letter to the child. Of course, you're in war. You never know if you're going to survive a battle anyways. So, I mean, it makes sense. He would write a letter, to have money in that envelope, make sure the kid that was his now, that he considered to be his daughter, and that she called daddy to him. It would make sense that he would try to make sure she had a future of some kind and was cared for in case he died. But because of the trauma he faced and what was what was also traumatized him by how shamed he should be and how shamed other people treated him at times at the beginning of this film too, how he tried to hide this thing. It was such a beautiful part of this story. And so I think that in one sense, in regards to him wanting to fly a kamikaze mission finally, a part of him felt like that's his only option to regain honor, and which is a big deal. But then the other characters saying, wait a minute, that's pre-war mentality. That's not how we have to live anymore.
Yes.
Life is valuable. We don't have to do that. And sometimes in real life, perhaps we've had friends that feel they have to take their life. They have to do the final thing, the horrible final thing. And it's very hard often to get through to them to say, no, you mean something to me. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but you have value. I want you to live, but they can be so traumatized, so mentally ill and sick and hurt and beaten down that they can't see the way out. And so for this young man to struggle with that and to kind of feel like he has to, but then to finally get forgiveness from the one man he felt he never would ever get it from, that engineer. That was the breakthrough.
Yep.
That was the breakthrough for him, where even though they tried to trick us a little bit into thinking he was going to actually fly into Godzilla's face, to see that eject seat go up was absolutely like, I knew it was coming, but I wasn't sure. Right. They beautifully set that up. And it was thrilling. I'm telling you, it was thrilling.
What do you think about the thought when his girlfriend, the pseudo mother of the child, the woman he loved, when she is swept away by Godzilla?
That was, oh my gosh.
Did you expect that to happen, or were you like surprised, or did it like go?
I was surprised. The reason I was surprised was because, like, she has that daughter. I mean, like, again, she's stepdaughter. She has a kid to take care of. So I was surprised because of that. Because, like, again, everything happened so quickly, but at some point in the back of her brain, she knows that he has not been doing a great job of taking, like, he's not emotionally as attached to the kid like she is. So the fact that she pushed him and, like, basically sacrificed herself and pushed, like, that I had a hard time with, because she's leaving that girl. You know
what though? The depth of that scene. This film is so stinking deep. The depth of that scene was this woman was at the very least falling in love with him.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It is a love story as well. You're right.
They have created
Yeah.
this family out of the horrific circumstances of World War II. And her act of pushing someone who felt they didn't deserve a second chance, who didn't think they were lovable enough, didn't think they deserved any type of happiness. That was such a huge act by her to tell him how she felt about him and what value his life held. And also, yeah, maybe he wasn't doing the best job, but maybe she really believed in him that ultimately that kid was going to be fine, that he would step up.
That's a big risk to take on behalf of your child who has lost her parents.
In that moment.
Yeah.
And the blue death ray comes.
Well, sure.
You know what I mean?
Again, if it's like a semi-conscious choice of saving one versus both dying, just whoever can be saved, save. But I still, that's the part that I struggle with, is the fact that she kind of she has a kid to take care of and she's sacrificing herself.
And so the payoff at the end, end, when he finds out that she's not dead, that she survived, and that's his reward, his redemption, that he's given back the woman he truly realizes that he loves and can't live without, and that their family is now whole again. One of my pseudo mom, the pseudo dad, the pseudo child. Yes.
All I was thinking about in that final scene, was that, oh my God, thank God that girl did not lose her mother. That was
right.
Yeah,
Cris.
For me, it was probably the most relieved I have felt in him. Just watching anything, probably in the last year. I remember looking at my friend and just letting out a big breath of just oh, thank goodness. They can't do him dirty by him just finally getting his life back.
Right.
And there's also the daughter too. But I felt that was just really well earned. I know a lot of times in movies when the character thinks the character's dead, but they come back, sometimes it can feel like it's just a cheat, but it was just well done. Well done in this. And I agree. I felt so good. I was just oh my goodness.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is he comes off the ship having saved the world, really, but Tokyo in particular. And he sees the neighbor with his daughter, and the neighbor has the letter, which I think we were supposed to know it's probably news of the mom, although maybe, I was hoping, but I wasn't really sure, So they did such a good job. But when she hugs him and welcomes him back and just starts punching him, just hits him several times, you what, and because that's who wouldn't want to do that? You fool, putting your life on the line like that. I hate you, but I love you, I'm glad you're safe, but I hate you, Don't do that again. It was really great, charming scene.
And also a nice bookend of all this is the one kid who's injured, who's got his injured arm. And he wants to go. He wants to help out. And they're going, no, you're injured. You can't go. But I want to go. I want to help out. And what does he end up doing? He helps out.
On the tugboats.
The tugboats, he gets them all. And there's your Dunkirk scene.
That's my favorite. Well, I think probably my favorite thing about this, and it's why I love Independence Day and a lot of the better of those films, where it's every character that you have, they set up the character and then they're able to contribute to the solution in a way that's logical. So I was like, thank goodness. I'm like, okay, this guy, he wants to help, but he can't. I'm like, surely there's going to be something in the end that he can contribute to. And so when he shows up with the tugboats, it's like, okay, good. They're really utilizing everybody, and everybody has a part to play in the final, in the big solution to how do we defeat Godzilla.
Even the quote mad scientist, the doctor who comes up with the plan, and he's like, it's going to work. It doesn't work. Oh, we're really in trouble now. What do we do now? Oh my God, we've shot all our bullets. What are we going to do now? And then whoop, our hero shows up and he flies into the Godzilla's mouth, and
beautiful. Oh man, that was pretty good special effects.
And there's
too.
your tie into Independence Day there, Christopher.
Oh, I guess
Chris,
that's true. Yeah,
where he goes into as the weapon is being released, the Blu-ray that was in Independence Day is going to happen, and he flies the ship in, and it like does the destruction more so than he could ever have thought.
Yeah, I'm just glad we didn't hear this guy yell, "I'm back."
You didn't want to hear it go, in the words of our generation, up yours. I love that. I love that scene.
Yeah.
Don't you dare talk badly about that. It's okay.
No, it's quite all right. But again, it's those things that give this film such tremendous heart, and why. I mean, even my daughter Jenny, when she said how much she loved this film, and I'm going, she normally doesn't talk about Godzilla films in any sense of the way. Like, no, in films like this, she's like, no, I can sit on and do Mystery Science Theater 3000 and tear them to shreds. And she just couldn't stop talking about how much she loved it.
It's a Godzilla film.
It is.
But I think you got to give yourself a break, though, like, because you keep saying, "Oh, I was wrong. It's like, but it's a Godzilla movie. No one. I think this is a word of mouth thing where you have to be told this is really good, because when you hear, "Oh, it's a Godzilla movie," you already have that. It has that reputation that, okay, it might be at best, it's going to be a fun popcorn movie. At worst, it's going to be really cheesy and terrible. But no one, I think, was expecting a masterpiece. But then when you start to hear the reviews, it's like, oh, maybe I got to take this seriously.
Yeah.
But it was so, so
surprising. I had no plans to watch this until, you brought it up for the podcast. And Brian watched it before me. And as he was saying, like, in our chat, like, oh, this is great. I'm like, really? I was skeptical. I was still skeptical.
Welcome to my world. Okay. So now you know how I felt and how I thought about, like, no, it can't be. This can't be.
Guys, I started watching this over one of my lunch breaks, and I remember eating my sandwich just going, this is really good. Like, I was expecting to give this a toilet paper rating, like I just was surprised right away. I knew it was going to be an enjoyable film to watch. And then I got halfway through it and I'm absolutely enthralled. I had to watch it in 3 installments, unfortunately.
Understood.
Just real life, busy, all that stuff. But
sure.
I got to watch the last 40 minutes today, and I'm telling you, I was in tears. It has all the feels, and it's beautifully done. And it's just, I'm so surprised by this film. I haven't been this surprised by a film until I saw how terrible Star Trek Nemesis was. And that was the last time I was so surprised by a film. But
this is a good surprise. This was a positive surprise. This was a, and I guess that's truly the charm and beauty of this film, is that it's an old film. It's an old styled movie.
Yes.
It has that feel that you love old Westerns, Brian, and this just had that feeling like, that the town folks are all going to get together and they're going to do the right thing to save the town. I mean, yes, it wasn't an Andy Rooney film, or not Andy. Well, Andy. Films with Andy Rooney and what's her name? They would make we're going to save the school or the farm, and we got to put on a show, and we're going to do it had that come together feeling that everyone came together to make this happen, and they all did it on their own, especially when, again, the military of the United States and Russia, because of Cold War situations, refused to get involved. The Japanese government said, we can't get involved because we've signed these non-aggression pacts that were done after World War II, where Japan basically had to submit to losing any military might whatsoever, and they're using decommissioned ships. So when they have that final, you see that gun battle between Godzilla and the cruiser, and like, they're gonna get it, and it gets wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the feeling of the Japanese, like no matter what we try to do, we're going to get knocked down again. And even though it was Godzilla and it's a metaphor for what they were, like we're going to just no matter what we do, we're going to get knocked down.
Andy Rooney and Judy Garland.
That's right. Thank you. Those are the movies.
I don't want to leave my co-host Brian hanging. I also felt that way with Nemesis. I still feel like do I have to send formal apology letters to some of my friends that I dragged to the movie with, like because they came along, they were supportive, but that was a rough weekend.
I'm gonna ask my dad to watch this movie and see if he falls asleep. If he falls asleep, then his rating system is totally jacked up and untrusted. You can't trust it anymore because this film is too enthralling and too beautiful. You have to be rather sleepy when you start watching it to fall asleep in it. It's that good. So.
Yeah, I think especially if you're watching, like, did you watch the English dub or the Japanese? I
watched the English dubbed over, and I still had the subtitles on, and I don't know why I had the subtitles on still.
I had the subtitles on for every show that I watch and every movie, just for whatever reason. I find it's helpful, even though I speak English. But I watched the Japanese version, or my
wife requires the subtitles on when we watch The Crown.
Right, that makes sense.
Really?
Like, I can't understand
the accent.
Some of the stuff.
Accent.
Yes, sometimes, and it's not everything, but
there are certain shows, whatever. There was a show on, I think it was Netflix, called Derry Girls, about these teenage girls living in Northern Ireland, leading up to the insurrection, the problems of the North, the Catholics and the Protestants fighting over Northern Ireland. And there were times we watch it and I'm going, what in the hell are they saying? Because they've got these really heavy Irish accents. I never put the subtitles on, which I kind of wish I did maybe in some cases, but it helps out.
It does. Some people need, like my father-in-law, the subtitles when we watch the Lord of the Rings films for the first time. And it's because oftentimes they're whispering. They're lines.
So much whispering.
Or, stuff, or the music is pretty loud compared to the voices. So subtitles are a good tool. Thank you.
No, they are. They
created subtitles long time.
I think it's a George W. Subtitle Corporation of America thanks you as well. Any other thoughts or feelings about this movie? I mean, I know we could probably keep gushing on it and gushing on it and gushing on it.
I need to make a public statement, Steve. And it is for you, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to publicly thank Steve Merkin from Los Angeles, California, for submitting this film to the Big Sci-Fi podcast for our viewing pleasure. And it's not every day you get so enthralled and surprised by a film. Yeah. And so this has been truly an enjoyable experience. Watching this film and then talking with you guys. And I'm sorry. I also want to state publicly, I'm sorry I hogged so much mic time in this episode.
That's okay. It's okay. You feel very strongly about it. It's fine. And I actually ran into my friend Brandon last week, and I told him we were going to be doing the podcast this Wednesday about it. I told him I'm going to do a shout out to him. And again, the same thing. And here's the thing. My sister Judy went to Japan on business one year, and she brought me back a Godzilla figurine from Japan.
Wow.
Because she said I deserved it. Well, when I worked with Brandon at Children's Hospital, I took Godzilla and I brought it to him. And I said, this is for you. And he said, no, I can't take it. I said, no, this is for you, to thank you for telling me about this movie, because this movie means that much. And I will let him know that how you guys felt about this film, and I am sure it will bring a smile to his face, knowing that a recommendation he gave to me, and I will tell my daughter Jenny the same thing, the recommendation she gave to me was so powerful that it got me to go see this movie. I was lucky again to see it, and that it has gotten you guys to go enjoy it as well. So really, I'm going to deflect what you said, Brian, and share it with the people that deserve it, the ones that said, go see this movie. You're
all
going to enjoy it.
Even though they can't see it, we should all salute Brandon right now.
I'm saluting.
Brandon, we salute you.
There you go.
Left or the right?
I will send. And I told him I will send him
salute.
It's hello. Anyway, no, I told him when this comes out, I will send him this audio so he can listen to himself and get the recognition he deserves.
Nice.
So, thank you. So I guess we're down to now the final, using the Brian Donahue.
Yeah, that's okay. It happens.
Brian Donahue 5-star rating system. Where do you score this film out of 0 to 5 stars? Go ahead.
Me first? I get to go first?
Yes,
well, because Brian is clearly a 0, right?
I'm a 0.
I give it a 1.5. You know, well, it was just okay.
What's the 0.5 difference for you between a 1 and a 1.5?
And you can't say Godzilla minus 0 minus 0.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. No, right, obviously, guys, I feel like it's rare these days. This film deserves a 5-star, in my opinion.
Wow.
It deserves every bit of the 5-star rating. It's got charm, it's got class, it's got heart. I think it is so honorable towards Japanese people. Like I just feel like it captures the essence of the spirit of what they must have felt after World War II. And I got to tell you, if my wife wasn't working down the hallway in a serious meeting for her job, I would have been jumping up and down, screaming and yelling. And my kids would have been too, if they had watched it with me. It's that fun. It's that heroic. It's that epic. So well done. Biggest surprise film ever for me that we've watched on the Big Sci-Fi and talked about. So
that is amazing. Adina, where do you stand?
So I want to say somewhere between 4.5 and 5 stars. And the only reason I'm hesitating on the perfect 5 is because just to underscore the fact that I thought this was a great film, but it's not like it's going to be in one of my top 10, because to me, my top 10 are like, these are films that I want to watch and rewatch and rewatch. This is not something that I want to rewatch. You know, I want to rewatch things that are more fun. It's a little too serious, especially, you know, the post-war and all the PTS and all that. So it's not something that I want to rewatch, but it's a great film. So if people can accept my 5 as not meaning that it's like one of my favorites of all time, then it's a 5.
So you can go 4.9,
like somewhere,
and let the number go, and let those 9s go off for some distance, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that we can rate films high, but say we'll probably never watch them again. Like that's okay.
Yeah.
But you experienced it. And
probably movies that are some of my favorites that I would like are my personal top 10. I wouldn't necessarily say that like they're like a great movie, but they're enjoyable for me to watch and rewatch and rewatch and watch.
Absolutely.
Mr. Cris.
I gotta say, I'm with Adina. I'm actually glad, Adina, that you went first, or actually second, or you went before me. Just because I'm trying to figure out how I wanted to articulate my feelings, where I thought it was an amazing movie, really well done. I enjoyed every minute of it, but it's not a movie that's in my top 10, just because, like Adina said, like it's very dark. It's serious. It has its fun moment, and I probably will rewatch this again at some point, but it's not one that I'm not going to be in a Godzilla Minus One mood in the way that I am for a lot of my like top 10 films, even though, as Adina is saying, same with her films, a lot of my top 10s are not necessarily good movies, but they're just ones that mean a lot to me that I enjoy. Right. So I'd probably say I'm in the same boat, like somewhere between 4.5 and not quite 5, maybe a 4.7 or 4.8.
Okay. Well, you have to think about that. Some of your favorite things to eat are not really that healthy or that good for you, but they make you feel good when you eat them. I'm speaking to you, Cheetos. Anyway.
Just had a bag today.
It's pizza, it's cake, it's ice cream, it's chocolate.
Yeah. Yes.
It's all of it. It's a good for the soul, bad for the body food.
Brian, now you've left me and Adina and Cris with this pondering. Is this a 5 or is this a 4.9 into infinity and beyond? Because it's like, the Olympics. How do you give a 10? That's perfect. What is beyond a 10? Is there 11 on the stereo that you can crank it up to because 10 just isn't good enough? So I'm going with you, Brian. I'm giving it a 5. And the reason why is because I don't know what better is. And maybe we'll never see better. Or we might see better and it'll just be another 5 because it is that great of a film. It did have that much heart, effect. And again, from this old Godzilla person who watched War of the Gargantuas and terrible, I mean, movies that have been lampooned on Mystery Science Theater, like Gamera, a turtle with rockets coming out of its body. I mean, really? But hey, they're charming and they're fun. But this one was special, even in some degree, even more special than the original Godzilla film from 1954, because it told it more honestly about the trials and tribulations. And that's what the original Godzilla film was about, the trials of the Japanese people after World War II, rebuilding their country and knowing that they could be threatened by something that was inconceivable, which is a monster brought forth because of nuclear weapons and nuclear testing. And that was their reaction to Hiroshima and Nagasaki of what's the worst that could happen to us? Oh, yes, a nuclear bomb. So here's the worst thing that could be possible. A monster driven by nuclear weapons.
Powerful.
And I'm done preaching. But yes, I agree with you. Let's give it a 5, Brian. Let's
virtual high five, Steve.
You got it. Virtual. Hey, there you go. High five. All right.
I respect Adina and Chris's rating system
Absolutely.
for this film. Anyway,
Absolutely.
It's totally feel you guys. And again, I will rewatch this film, but it's not going to be a film I'm going to rewatch like Star Trek First Contact.
Yeah. Or Willy Wonka in my case. Yeah. It's like that. These are your favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
But you know what? It does have a special spot, and that's the important thing.
Yep.
So I'm going to say, and there you have it, our in-depth discussion of Godzilla Minus Zero. There are times when you go to see a film with high expectations and you are disappointed. And other times you go to see a film with low expectations and you are pleasantly surprised and sometimes even overcome with emotion from it. I was so lucky to have my second chance with this film to see it in the big screen, but seeing it again on TV, in color, the version was a treat as well. And it's the story that makes the difference, and this one stands out as truly an excellent story, as we've discussed. And if you have your own opinions of this film or any of our discussion, please go and to our Facebook page or join our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, send us your opinions at our email address of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast at gmail.com. We love your thoughts and opinions, and more so, please press the like button and share our links to the best website this side of the moon, Trek Geeks, because we don't know if there's anyone's on the other side of the moon. We are so proud to be part of their collection of podcasters, and all our previous episodes are available for you to enjoy. And as always, I leave you with these parting words. Look to the skies. Live long and prosper.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. If you're having fun and enjoying the podcast, we ask that you would share the love by liking, following, subscribing, rating, and writing a review for us. That helps get our podcast in front of more potential listeners. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Once again, we're a part of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and you can find our podcast along with other fantastic podcasts by visiting trekgeeks.com. looking at?